Transformer!
Hey everyone, Darryl here. Today we're going to do something a little different. Instead of a straight up interview, we're going to do something a little different here. We're going to have a bit of a conversation / chat. We're going to do it with Mikey from Moonbase 2. So we're going to chat about stuff that he's involved with. If you didn't know, he's a paleontologist. It's fairly common knowledge at this point, I think. He's also Irish, so we're going to talk about that. And why not? We're going to talk about Transformers a bit. So hopefully you enjoy it. We're trying something new here, so hopefully you enjoy it. So yeah, here we go. Right on. What are you drinking there?
Cranberry juice.
Oh, nice.
Living dream.
Keep the old urinary tract clean, eh?
Yeah, basically that's the plan.
Good. Yeah. Right on. So you're probably pretty busy, pretty popular right now with Prehistoric Planet going on, eh?
Oh my, it's been fun. Kind of interesting to watch it from the perspective of being a paleontologist who's also really into the Jurassic films. It's kind of controversial these days, but I'm also like I'm developing like this real fascination about paleontology around Twitter and Twitter fandoms and stuff like that. Like, right. Just because I've never seen anything quite like it before in any other like science field or anything like that. Like, we have a fandom,
yeah,
and like where like people react to like new science stories and stuff like that, like they're reacting to latest Marvel trailer, or oh my god, Ezra Miller's an arsehole, or something like that, you know.
That fucking T-Rex, he's such a jerk.
Yeah, that prick. Like, oh no, it's Spinosaurus that sets everyone off these days, just because like every 5 minutes there's a new thing about it that's contradicting the last thing. But
the I find it, I mean, this is probably just old news to you, but like, and I try to point it out on transmissions when we get the opportunity to point it out, but the fact that T-Rex was what Grimlock's alt mode was back in 84 that's what T-Rex was back in like the early 80s, and it evolved to what it is now and what the what they envision it to be now. And in your brain you still think of it as that that Godzilla kaiju looking thing, and now it's like, it's a fucking bird looking lizard, right? And like it's been 40 years and it's just science is evolving. And I think you posted an hour ago or something like that with a picture of I'm not even going to try to pronounce the name of it, but it was like 3 years ago, a dinosaur that they had with a big red fleur on the head, and now it's not that anymore. It's no. It's completely different. So it's very different. Science is really clipping along, man, and I love it. It's very interesting.
Oh yeah, no, it's that was Dinokairos, if I remember right. But that's a really funny one because that's one we didn't know. We only had its arms for years, so we had like, I used to love seeing reconstructions of it because it would be like 17 different things, and then we found the rest of it, and it's like, oh my god, it's a freak. And just that kind of stuff. The way it like someone did a study or something and said like in the last 20 years we've had more changes than in the previous 200. Like it's skyrocketing, and like Prehistoric Planet is great. I'm really, really liking it. It's not perfect, but I'm really liking it. But something that's really striking me, and I wish would kind of sink into other people's heads, is that it's, wow, this is really accurate to the science right this second. May not be accurate to the science a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. Could be like, oh my god, this is so dated. But everyone lives in the moment.
Well, that's all we have, right? So,
exactly.
And these programs, they're produced months ago, right?
So, yeah.
So by the time the episode came out today, they may have had something come out today or tomorrow that contradicts what they showed yesterday, right?
Yeah, so, absolutely. Happens all the time.
What can you do? So it's very interesting. And with paleontology and dinosaurs, every kid grows up and they're they imagine, they can't believe that where they lived, dinosaurs once roamed. And I still find myself kind of in awe of the idea that where I currently live, dinosaurs walked around, and that kind of stuff. It boggles my mind, and I love it. And the idea that us as a human race are infinitesimal in comparison to the amount of time dinosaurs spent on the planet, right? And it really is. We have this ego of us being this superior species, and we really don't hold a candle to the amount of time dinosaurs spent on the planet.
What is it like? T-Rex is closer to us than it is to Stegosaurus in terms of time. Like there's that kind of big a difference. And like people always think of evolution as like this progression, like, oh, next animal's better than the last animal, better than the last animal, better. It doesn't work like that. It's whatever works for you in the moment. If it works really well for you to be dumb as a brick, but built like a tank, you will be dumb as a brick and built like a tank. Next week, the animal comes in and just like, oh, moment's better. It's like we evolved one thing really, really advanced, but it works in the moment. And, the world's changing so much. God only knows what the next moment's going to be. So, like, I always think about that Star Trek Voyager episode where they, Janeway and Paris turn into salamanders, which I think is, like, I'm listening to this podcast. It's like the most important episodes of Star Trek to watch. And I'm just like, no, you have to have Threshold in there. Threshold is an experience. But it's like, people said, it's, how could this happen? Because it's not a linear progression. Just like, no, it's not a linear progression. Theoretically, we could evolve to be dumb reptilian-looking things if the right conditions applied. We've still got all the genes; they just don't do anything. They're part of your junk DNA.
Yeah. So science is amazing, and I love looking closer at it. Some of that stuff, I mean, I don't dig too much into it because I'm one of those people who's dumb as a brick, built like a tank. I'm one of those, so it works to my advantage a lot. But I love to kind of look into that. The I guess it would be the Gattaca kind of DNA kind of fixing your genome, so you could your offspring are I don't know, built for the perfect world kind of thing. But it's a weird world if you start to play around in that kind of sandbox, I think.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, but it's an interesting concept. The movie Gattaca, if anyone's listening out there and hasn't watched it, it's a wild ride, and definitely one. It's I don't think it's dated, but it's an older movie now. It's a mid-90s, I think.
Mid-90s, yeah. It was made kind of in the post-Jurassic Park, oh my god, genes are the new nuke kind of phase. So there was quite a few films to come out at that time that were kind of like genetic engineering. And then The Matrix happened and changed the talk about all science fiction for the next 5 to 10 years, I'd say. And then the Matrix sequels happens, and we all stopped talking about the Matrix. But but yeah, Gattaca's an interesting one. I haven't seen it in a long, long time, but it's a fascinating little bit piece.
It's worth a rewatch because it spawned a whole other discussion in genetics and whatnot. But yeah, did you ever see the Animatrix? He's talking about Matrix.
Yes. Oh my God.
That's fantastic.
That was an interesting one. That freaked me out. Yeah. I was too young to watch that when I saw it. That was
an interesting one. So I bought the Matrix in a double pack on DVD, and it came with the Animatrix, and I'm like, "What's this disc?" I'm like, "What?" So I'm like, I watched the Matrix, and I was really interested in that. And I'm like, "I'll put this in and whatever." And I was blown away by all these crazy Animatrix, like anime stories and stuff. And there was some really great ones in there. But yeah, it was some really,
reminds me. The recent Star Wars thing, I don't remember the name of it. The 9-episode animated shorts for Star Wars that was done by famous anime companies, very, very similar. It had some really good ones as well. Most of it was set in kind of the pre inverted commas modern Star Wars phase, but it was really they had one with like a rabbit alien who was raised by nobles, whose I think it was her adopted sister who fell to the dark side, and she took up the cause kind of thing, and she's gone. And it's like a lot of stuff I would like to see developed into a series. There was one about the twins, one who was dark and one who was light. The idea of a Sith who wasn't evil, like as a the wandering cowboy, wandering samurai trope, but with a Sith. And like everyone thought he was a Jedi right up until the last minute and a half where he pulls out his lightsaber and it turns red.
Oh,
and it was really interesting how they played that. But
you need Jeremy for that. That's he's the Star Wars fiend on the show. That's I gave up on Star Wars. They just pummeled the community with like everyone with so much media, and I just was like, I can't take it. I'm checking out.
It's the only thing I've seen except for The Mandalorian. Yeah.
So that's a Mandalorian. I watch with the family, and I think we'll probably watch Obi-Wan just because it looks interesting. But
I'm curious about Obi-Wan. I have to admit.
But nobody in my house has seen the prequel movies. So they don't know Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan. So I'm like, all right, well maybe we should watch those. But
they also don't know who Jar Jar is, which means like if you make them watch this, they've lost their innocence.
That's true. Yeah. so there's a play.
It's like, hi, Dad. I was enjoying this nice plate of veal. Let's learn how veal is made, son.
Yeah. Oh man. So what else you got going on over there? Ireland is doing well with the COVID and stuff. I assume you guys are doing. We're
doing okay. We're doing okay. We managed to skip, like this house managed to skip it entirely, which was a bloody miracle.
Oh wow!
Yeah. So, but overall, we're doing okay. Like we're still getting a couple of thousand cases in a week or something like that. But for the size of the country, it's big. But for or a couple of thousand cases in a day rather. But for the size of the country, it's big. But like, we've generally gotten away pretty well with like not a lot of serious cases and not a lot of deaths and stuff like that. Like it was rough there for a while, but we're doing okay. But Ireland's plowing away. Ireland I find fascinating as a country because of how it's turned in. Like it's gone from like the most right-wing Catholic country I grew up in to this like one of the only countries to actually vote for gay marriage, like on a public vote.
Right.
Like I think it was us in Spain, where it wasn't like a Supreme Court level judgment. It was like just ask the people, what do the people say? Like I always find that Ireland is full of old women who are just like, God damn it, I hate those people over there. Jesus, I'm not into that. Those people over there who are with people who are like themselves, those type. We don't like them. And then suddenly like, but Tommy down the road, God, Tommy's a lovely boy, and his husband's the nicest man. Just like as long as once they realize they like. Your neighbor can be gay, your neighbor can be trans, your neighbor can be this, that, and the other. Suddenly they're just like, oh, I don't like the concept, but you won't say a bad thing about that boy. He's been picking up my shopping since 1942. He's a fantastic boy. Like, and then they vote based on that, which is like, because we had like a huge turnout for it in terms of the elderly vote, who were like mostly positive, which is fascinating.
Wow.
Like, and like we've had so many
that made news over here. Yeah.
We've had so many referendums and stuff in the last couple of years that like I'm kind of shocked at the direction it's taken. But then I remember Ireland that it's not its worst, but not its best. But
well, you guys had it was recently made news over here in the States. Obviously the abortion stuff, and you guys had a referendum on abortion too, which went positively to the good side.
Like, right? Again, like one of the most Catholic countries for a very, very long time until the mid-90s, and then suddenly within 20 years we're publicly voting for abortion again, like at all age levels. It wasn't to the point where the pro-abortion the anti-abortion marketing in Ireland was generally, even by people who would say they were on what they'd call pro-life, the marketing and stuff like that was always seen as like this extreme nut job thing that you don't do that. That's not how you make an argument. And like, and I don't want to have a dig at anyone for this, but the fascinating thing for me is that basically it was our attempt to do American political marketing, and the response was the public went, "That's dumb." Like you can't pull that over here because we're all a bit too stubborn. That's the word. We're all a bit too stubborn in.
Right. What do you contribute the shift from? You say you grew up and it was very, conservative, right sided,
Yeah.
and now you've seen a fairly significant shift to, more liberalism.
I wish I could say it was because of a natural change in society. What it was, unfortunately, was mid-90s, the Catholic sex abuse scandals from 1993 on completely turned people's heads on not religion per se, because many people here are still very religious, but on the structure.
Sure.
And like,
okay,
why are we listening to the messages of these people when these people are doing this? And like,
gotcha.
People who are super religious, super like old school Catholic, they're now coming out and saying like, these people are not speaking they're not practicing what they preach. And that led to a whole generation being raised in a lot more questioning environment.
Yep.
And now that generation is our parents, teachers, politicians, and they're influencing their children and so on and so forth. And we've got a lot of wellness movements in our schools these days. So like trying to be very open about different backgrounds and different orientations and identities, and open about races and gender and everything else. It's a long way to go because we are still a very old country, and we are very set in our ways. But I think that's what's interesting about it. We are still that, and yet we change so much in such a short period of time.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic.
I think we were still criminalizing homosexual behavior up until like 95, I think.
Ooh.
And now, again, we're like, get married, have children, take our wedding ceremonies time away. Like, go, be free. There was a big thing a couple of years ago. Someone wouldn't make a cake for a gay marriage, and like everyone just like went for him.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. It was like a bit much, to be completely honest. I think that's not solving a problem by, violently attacking someone over something like that. Like, I think you should talk to people. But it's just interesting to me how that's all gone. The country's just such a different animal than what I remember it being. Like, well, and it's could be good, could be bad. It's not up for me to decide.
Yeah, if you're happy, if it's the country, if you're happy the way it's going, then I mean, you're, then be proud. Be proud of your country. I've told the story that you told me through messaging a couple times because I find it hysterical about your postal system.
Yeah.
Can you relay that? Because I find that I've told a few people because I had to send you a package,
which is over there.
Awesome.
You can just see the white box there. Never been opened.
Yeah.
Only thing in my whole house that's never been opened.
Mine's around here somewhere. In somewhere in this mess. But I need you to tell how people find you or find somebody in your area, because it's honestly it's mind-boggling because it's crazy.
So, in most countries, I have lived in a couple now, you identify people, you get addresses, names, blah, 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 but the actual thing that finds your house is your postcode, your zip code, whatever. Up until about, I'd say maybe 8 years ago, no one in Ireland had one. You didn't have an we call them air codes now, but you didn't have one. They've been brought in now, but frequently no one uses them. I do because I get packages internationally, and you have to fill in a postcode thing. So
sure,
screw it. But yeah, so the basic thing was like my address was Michael O'Sullivan, blah blah blah, this place. So it would be like, I'm just going to pick something at random. Michael O'Sullivan, Ballygaffaw, Donegal, Ireland. Which I can imagine in some place like Canada or America would kind of be like saying like New York City, Mike, New York City. So, New York City, New York State. Like, Toronto. Man in Toronto, please find. So, but basically, very rarely did we ever miss packages. And someone decided to test this one day. And this is a very true story. They, because it seems to be just basically, it's a small country and we all know each other. And if you don't know them, someone knows you. You're like 2 degrees of separation from anyone. So someone sent a letter on someone's graduation. It was I think it was a gift of some kind. I don't remember, a card or money or whatever. And I think they signed it to Tommy at the end of the road with the glasses who just passed his exams. And they had it at the town, but that was the address. They didn't put in district, locale, anything, no code. And we had air codes at this time. I do remember this. And Tommy got it. Tommy got the postcode because once they said like Tommy end of the road with the glasses, and I remember Tommy. His mother comes in every day, and it's just like she comes in for the stamps. Oh, sure, we know Tommy, and that was in like the newspapers. That was just like Irish system works.
That's insane. It's absolutely insane. But it's also so quaint, and I love it. It's just like, that's for John. Give that to John. It's got John's name on it.
Yeah. Is it John the tall one or John the short one? Short. I remember John.
I know John. Oh, it's fantastic.
The worst happened this year. You've got the same name as someone in the area, and they all think you're related. Because I got pulled over by the cops once because they said, "Now, Mr. O'Sullivan, we've had a report that you have been seen speeding," and I was just like, "I don't think it was me. Why? I only got a car last week." "Oh, when was this report given?" "About a month and a half ago, sir." "I think you've got the wrong O'Sullivan here." And it's the Irish Guards, which is their whole response is, no, there'll be none of that.
I remember getting pulled over once because they thought my car was the car used in some kind of robbery or some kind of thing they were looking for. They're like, where were you 2 nights ago? And I'm like, I was at home. It's like, okay, well, we've seen this car somewhere. I'm like, you better not have, because this is my car. And then my wife got pulled over once. My license was suspended. I was a little heavy-footed for a while there, and my license was suspended, and my wife got pulled over because they wanted to make sure that I wasn't driving. So it scared the hell out of her.
Darryl? Is your name Darryl? No.
Yeah. We just want to make sure that the owner of the car isn't driving this vehicle. Did you steal this car?
Did you steal this car? We just want to make sure the owner isn't driving it. But did you also steal it? We got a 50-50 here.
Yeah. We don't care if it's stolen. We just want to make sure the owner isn't driving it. Yeah. Oh man, that's fantastic. You going any conventions this year? You got TF Nation's happening.
TF Nation's happening.
Any Irish ones happening?
Not really. We got the Irish Comic Con coming up. I've been tempted to go to that for a while. If only to chase Nick Roach around with a stick. But he's too comfortable at these things. He goes to these things and everyone's just like, "Oh my god, it's Nick Roach. Have you met Nick Roach?" And I'm just like, that's a hi Nick.
He's a rock star right now.
He is. Last Spot Standing's getting a good response. But I was hoping to, but finances and everything else didn't quite come together this year. Hopefully, though, I will be settled for next year's TF Nation. Actually, I should be in a lot better position next year. Really miss it. Really haven't gone since a couple of years before COVID, actually, just because of personal circumstances, and then we all got bloody locked down for 2 years. So yeah, I've seen the online ones, of course, but no, really hoping to be able to go to it for next year. If only to see how it's changed, because I suspect it's gonna have, after the online stuff and everything else, and with the change in the comic demographics now that the IDW 1 wrapped up and now IDW 2 is wrapping up, I'm very curious to see what effect that's had on the demographics that attend, because got the BBC actually. What's the BBC? Some big paper a few years ago now, but I mean 4 or 5 years, looked at the demographics and stuff that were attending conventions like TF Nation, and in response to an article they originally wrote, which said women aren't geeks, and here's why. So says random psychologist we asked, who talked utter nonsense. But and then, not unsurprisingly, every female geek in the country, and several countries in fact, lashed out. And then it turned out a very large percentage of them were TF Nation goers, and the demographic from TF Nation shifted from over 30 men to under 30 men, women, and non-binary and
Sure.
Basically, I think they were listed under other. I don't remember what it was. Like, basically, people who don't identify as cisgender or whatever. But shifted dramatically from that in response, largely, it seems, to the influx of readers from the Phase 2 books. So I haven't been there since Phase 2 ended and IDW 2 kicked off. So I am really curious to go back and see, like, has the demographic changed a lot? Has it gone a different way, or have that group now formed the new staple, the new norm? And like, because like the attendance is still like huge for a country our size. Obviously, like, not TFCon level or anything like that, but
the we've talked about it a bunch on transmissions. The the shift in the demographic, and because I had attended TFCon in Canada, gosh, it's probably coming up to 10 years in a row, and when I first started going, the comics were kind of they were okay, but really when the More Than Meets the Eye Robots in Disguise books kind of kicked in, then you really did start to see a shift, and the female fandom really started to make their presence known. And when I would start going to attending those conventions, you would see lineups waiting for the artists to show up. I remember, and I've told this story before on the show, but I remember Saren Stone was late to her table one day, and it turned out she had slept in or something like that. But the insane line that had formed up waiting for them to show up was incredible. And they were all female fans waiting for Saren to show up. And she was probably 2 hours late, and it was incredible. They all sat there and waited for Saren to show up, and the people that waited, and they're all fans of the art, and they all want the comics and stuff like that, and it was incredible. And a few of them buy like the handmade stuff, the plushies, and they're there for the buttons and all the crafty stuff and whatnot. Very rarely do you see them head into the dealer room. You see a lot of them. They hit Artist Alley, and they hit occasionally they hit the voice actors and stuff like that. But they are there for the comic stuff, and it was incredible, the shift. It was really neat. But the last I did go to TFCon Toronto in December. And that was a tough show, because it was 2 weeks from Christmas, and it was still pandemic-esque, and I wouldn't necessarily give that like the judge of a proper TFCon, but there was still a significant contingent of female fans. So it'll be interesting. Obviously the TF Nation has been a show that has been more dedicated to comics than toys. I would always gather it'd be more like at least 60-40 split for comics to toys. I would love to attend one day.
Do it. I want to go to TFCon like desperately. I wanted to go to TFCon for years. If things keep going the way they're going at the moment, I might actually make it one of these years, not too distant, if only to shove Vangelis. Like to run across a room and football tackle him has been my dream for about 10 years now.
I think he could take it.
Not if I hit the ankles. Not if I go low.
No.
He'll be expecting high. Ankle. You go low.
Yeah.
But I've always wanted to go, like, because Auto Assembly back in the day was my first convention, and I've been to a few non-Transformer ones, but I find that the Transformers ones are so unified around a core concept. Like a lot Comic Cons and Anime Cons and Movie Cons, whatever, they're around the genre. Transformers is about boom. It's what I imagine going to like the Gargoyles convention must have been like when it was going. So I'd love to see that in a more international level, and especially on a larger scale, because even a small convention in North America is going to, be pretty big by our standards. So,
yeah. Well, they said, what was it? Maybe you said it. 2,000 people attended TF Nation the last time. I was watching a
there was one year that was
review
2,000
or something like that. Yeah, and it was so that's pretty big. I think TF Con. I mean, the Toronto one I think gets around 5,000 to 6,000. So it's considerably bigger, but it's the U.S. one. I went to one in Chicago one year, and it was creeping around 8,000 or 9,000 people. So I mean, that's Chicago though. That's central U.S. That's pulling from everywhere. But it's an interesting animal. I've been to some massive actual conventions. Like I've gone to Fan Expo in Toronto, like they call it the third biggest convention in North America. I don't know. I don't judge. Like I don't go to the other two, so I don't really know. But it's a big convention.
Standing outside San Diego Comic-Con with a little ticker every time someone goes by. 1, 2, 3.
But it's a big show, and generally you bump into people nonstop for the full day you're there. TFCon you can still walk around, but you're still seeing a lot of people you recognize, and there's an awful lot you don't. But you can still just sit and chat with somebody if you wanted to, right? Like you said though, the dedicated convention being Transformers, everyone's there for the same reason, so you can kind of just sit and chat with them. So that's pretty nice. You touched on it there for a second though about the comics. I know you and Vangelis, speaking of Vangelis, you guys looks like you're doing a breakdown.
We did
the comics.
Moonbase 2 is doing kind of it's not just Chris now. Like I had the idea, like with the announcing that the license is coming to an end for IDW. It's 17 years. It is really hard to argue whether you loved it or hated it or felt nothing. It's significant, and it's been hugely influential to the wider fandom. Like so many elements of it are now like Windblade is Windblade because of the comics, not because of the fan vote. The concept of the Titans has really spun out of that, and so on. So I'm really interested in how people think about different parts of it. So Chris was the first one we had on, and he wanted to talk obviously about IDW2 because he is a big fan of that, and I'm not. And we had a really good discussion that went on for a couple of hours, and we really sort of dug into it and our different perspectives. And he gave me some interesting insights, and he said I did the same. And the next one is, so his name's Jala Guy. He ran a podcast when the Hasbro Universe was a thing, where all the G.I. Joe and everything else was involved in it. And he wanted to talk about that and like the pluses and the negative and why that never really got off the ground and why people reacted to it the way it did. We did the recording for that. It's pretty interesting. It'll be up hopefully this month, if not later. And I'm going to do that basically until the end of the year. So get someone on. Basically any topic you want to cover. If you wanted to cover a phase of IDW, that's great. If you want to cover IDW as a whole, if you want to cover a character, an issue, anything, something is in your mind worth discussing. I wanted to do that because like I wasn't into the reviews. And at the moment, the only book I really want to review is Last Bot Standing because I've done King Grimlock. I loved King Grimlock. I found out there was going to be a sequel to King Grimlock that was never made.
Aww.
Called Grimlock in Hell.
Because
we had the writer on for an interview, and I was just like, I really like this. It's a shame whatever. And he said, well, before we found out the license was going down, we'd confirmed a sequel about Grimlock fighting his god in hell. It's just like, so Last But Standing is the only thing I want to touch on, but it seems so serialized just from reading the first issue. It's not really an issue by issue breakdown from my perspective. It is definitely. I find miniseries are very much for trade consideration, more so than individual ongoings. I think, at least ideally. So, in order to keep comic things, it's either we do non-Transformer stuff, which is always fun, but people may not be interested in that, or we try to do something a little left field, and that's what struck me. So hopefully we'll get 6 or 7 decent shows out of that. And then IDW will wave goodbye, and it's going to be very strange for a while.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you about. We've speculated a couple times on the show about what's going to happen. Do you have any thoughts on where maybe what you'd like to see happen, where you'd like to see it land? It's landing somewhere.
It's landing somewhere. The rumor is Skybound, obviously, but which I find hilarious because Skybound publishes under Image, and Image's head once came out and said Transformers are not comics. You should read our books instead. Which I just find hilarious. I have to admit, like, a lot of the Image books are hit and miss with me, but I think it's just because like they have such a broad range of topics. Like they don't have a unifying aspect the same way a lot of big companies have. Like, but on the same time, they also have less editorial guidance for original authors and author-created series, which also means sometimes you can get some absolute gems and sometimes you just absolute dreck because sometimes you need editorial guidance to tell your brain, don't write that down. That was wrong and you were wrong for doing it. So Skybound, I think, is pretty likely. I think Kirkman will push for it. He's got an affection for the franchise. I think people going like, oh my God, Transformers will be Walking Dead is probably a little bit much, because I think what will probably happen is you'll get a pretty standard Transformers story, at least to start. I don't think you're going to get something very inventive or groundbreaking, because I don't think that's how you draw in readers who, let's be honest, when you reboot something like this, you're trying to draw in readers who have lapsed or readers who are new. And what you do with that is that you use familiarity. You do, if the movies were going on right now to the scale they were, I would say you'd do a movie book instead of a G1 book. Now, these days, it's all G1 nostalgia. G1 will be the big push. But I hope that phase doesn't last very long. I want to see creativity and inventiveness, because I like plenty of the pre-Phase 2 books, but I also see them as very symptomatic in some ways of even like Simon's book, which had a very different like structure in terms of like, it was more really a human perspective war story involving Transformers in many ways that evolved into a more grand experience. I feel that was still quite traditional. I want to see something cool. I want to see a lot of the weirdness and wilder ideas that we can have in this franchise executed. I'm terrified of nostalgia these days. I genuinely am. Trying to make everyone be Peter Cullen, who plays Optimus Prime. The same roster of characters. The Allspark. The Well of Allsparks. The Matrix of Leadership. The I don't know. Like, all these things are gone.
Enigma of combination.
Enigma of combination. Thank you. There's a good one.
Fucking hate that thing.
I love fantasy and mysticism and stuff like that, but my God, just you did it once. You did it because you had to sell a toy line. Now put it away. Like, the only time I've liked that being used personally is when it was used in the Galaxy's Devastator story, which I think is fantastic. I need that guy to write more Transformers in general.
Okay.
Also can't believe he's like a company chairman at the same time, but well done him.
Tyler Blazinski, we'll let him know.
Tyler Blazinski, like, you can tell him from me, that is the best combiner story ever written. Like, that hit on so many wonderful ideas I wish someone would examine in combiners for years.
Right.
So
Dr. Mikey approves.
Yeah, very much so. Very, very much so. So please let him know that. But I want to see people come in from the left field a bit, or any field. Okay. Upright field, top field, bottom field. A field away from the center. Nostalgia is center. Nostalgia is that key tent pole that's like, hey, do you remember? And everyone comes in. And that's what's selling a lot of stuff these days. Like, I love the No Way Home. I love No Way Home more than I've loved Marvel movies in years. But it is still... that central peg is, do you remember? Now, they did a lot with it, but do you remember is there. The Chip and Dale movie that came out is, do you remember? Like, way more than I was expecting it to be. But I wanted people to say, like, okay, I accept you're going to have that little tentpole, but I want it to be like, do you remember? Because this is different. This isn't that. Like, my ideal one would be something without Optimus and Megatron, at least for a while. Like, and not
thrown that out. Yeah.
And not replace them with proxies. Not like, oh, here's Ultra Magnus and Detsaurus, and they're doing the same thing. Focus on like a small group of non-important people, or focus on characters who are markedly different from both of them. Like, it's a little safe
Well,
for
more
my
than
taste.
meets the eye and Robots in Disguise again.
Kind of, but not like you could still do the war story. You're still doing, these are people fighting a war, but instead of doing, say, it's a little safe, but it's just an example. Bring in someone like Hot Rod, because he is like, okay, he's someone who's got potential to lead, but he's a hothead, he's young, and he's dumb. And every version of him has been like that, because the idea is to have him build up into the more traditional leader. So Focus on him for a while. Focus on him actually screwing up a lot. He gets someone killed because of a mistake he made in giving a command or something like that. And then a Decepticon, you have a sympathetic Decepticon as your villain. And like, they don't have to be a good guy. I'm not saying like, do RID, hey, here's Soundwave, now he's a decent guy at the end of it. Here's Megatron, he's an Autobot. I'm saying this is a bad guy who wants bad things, but is not a monster. The best example I can think of would be someone like Detsaurus, who like in a lot of fiction, not all of it, is kind of portrayed as like more aware of the needs of his men and women and those under him. And like to a wild degree in the manga, where it turned out his entire fight was to free everyone's wives and babies. Also, he used to be in school with Star Saber, and they were best friends until I think one of them hit the other one with a stick. 80s manga is weird. But that's something I'd like to see. Something just like atypical. Because I think what made IDW2 work was that it wasn't what anyone expected. Like, even the fact it started with the death of Optimus Prime, which took that in an angle that people didn't expect it to go itself. Yeah, I'm scared of just getting normal again. Because I think one of the flaws of IDW2 is it went a bit normal.
I'm IDW2 right now is for me. I mean, I'm the G1est of G1ers that you can find, but this story has been the most boring story I can think of. So I'm in one end, I'm happy it's ending. On the other side, I'm kind of sad that IDW is losing the license, because they've done a lot of really great stuff like you said, over the course of 17 years, you're going to produce some duds, man. And I mean, Heart of Darkness is a dud. So, there's a lot of duds out there, but you're also going to produce some gems.
PTSD flashback. Oh, my first comic review.
You're gonna mine some gems though, man. You're gonna also get some really good gems out there. So, but the fact of the matter is the majority of what you produce is going to be fairly mediocre, right? So it's just law of averages.
That's what made Phase 2 so weird. It's just like, we had not just the main books, in terms of miniseries and other stuff, we had a lot of hits in a period of time.
Yeah, like I love those miniseries.
Yeah, to the point where we started getting a little complacent, I think, and started expecting everything to be a hit.
So those miniseries, they weren't apologetic. They were just like, we're gonna get weird and just be fine with it. Just don't expect them to make a lot of sense. It's just gonna get crazy. It's gonna be 4 issues. We're gonna be in and out in 4 issues, and just enjoy the ride. And I was fine with it, because they were honest about it. They're like, we're gonna make the Starship Enterprise into Fortress Maximus. Like, all right, let's get crazy, So
those were great. I love those crossover books. Like, they're so much
fun.
I think the Ghostbusters one is my favorite, if only because everyone's so sick of Ectotron. Just please,
I love it.
Stop. To the point where, like, Ectronimus, they're calling me Ectotron now, and Optimus just like, oh, thank God.
Yeah, I love it. I love them just being silly, and I mean, it's been out a really long time. But if anyone listening hasn't read the Mars Attacks, Transformers crossover, it's fantastic.
It's so good,
fantastic, and it's a one shot
for Yellow Booties.
It's so good, right? You got to get
that end where they shake hands and just like, we did it. We beat the aliens. Pause. You're just going to go right back to trying to kill me, aren't you? Of course. Love it.
It's so fantastic. So
Mm.
yeah, that's there's been some real hits out there, and if anyone's just been reading like the main stories and they've been avoiding all the crossovers and the stuff like that, yeah, there's some junk crossovers too. Like, the ones where they keep doing with the zombies and stuff, like those were garbage. Get rid of
Yeah.
that crap, right?
Mm.
But there's some really good ones. So yeah, I'm sad that IDW is losing the license, but maybe it is time. 17 years is a long ass time. It's longer than Marvel ever held the license. It's longer than Devil's Due ever held. It's the longest anyone's ever held this license. And, maybe it's time somebody else had a chance,
Yeah, absolutely. Like, companies change and spirits of companies change as well. Like, if it stayed at IDW too far past this, you'd have a big change in editorial. You'd start seeing a new move, or someone would say like, okay, we need to follow the Marvel structure of comics, which is every time a movie comes out, the main book changes to reflect the movie. Like, I don't think I could take that with Transformers. I mean, I can barely take it with most comic movies, to be honest. But like Transformers especially is so serialized by its structure. Like, even when it's standalone episodes, it's still a serialized concept. I would rather we leave now when the worst we could say was we had a bit of a boring couple of years.
Yeah.
Like, that's not a bad way to go out when so many comic companies have gone out like on fire.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. Oh well. So with IDW losing the license, that's the end of this year. We should probably find out in the next couple months who's got it when solicitations and stuff start showing up for January. Hopefully.
I'm hoping there's not a big. I wouldn't be shocked if it was a pause, but I'm hoping it's not like we're taking a year off, because I think that would be a huge mistake.
Oh, huge, massive. We know that Shattered Glass is getting a sequel. And that's starting in August.
That's a book I loved and never expected to.
That was good. That was unexpectedly good. But it's starting in August, and if they go monthly, that'll go right until the end of the year, which is insane.
What could it be like? What could it be like? The last Transformers book published by IDW could be a Shattered Glass comic. What world do we live in?
Blows my mind. With Shattered Glass, I'm not a huge fan of Shattered Glass, but I always thought, and I've said this on transmissions as well, but if I get the concept of Shattered Glass, right? But I always thought that a really good Shattered Glass story would be if you took an existing storyline from, let's use G1, doesn't matter, G1, but you took the Decepticon side of it and you flipped it, so you made it them the protagonist now, and you wrote it so that the Autobots were still doing exactly the same thing that they were doing in their storyline, but you now made them seem like they're trying to stop the Decepticons from doing what they need to do to survive, right? And that would be the Shattered Glass story I'd want.
Yeah, like you could have like Decepticons come to Earth looking for Energon, Autobots come to Earth to protect the citizens, but it's like the Autobots that come to Earth to protect the citizens because they ultimately want to subversely draw them into a Cybertronian empire. Whereas the Decepticons, all they want is the Energon. They do not want anything else to do with anyone else here.
Yeah.
And then you could play that up like they develop sympathies for the humans when they realize what's going on, or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, obviously the G1 cartoon was really, evil Megatron, really good father, dad, Optimus Prime, right? But the comics could really play with that and actually, make you sympathetic to Megatron and do something like that. And I thought, if you did this right, if you had a really good writer behind this, you could really change it, and so make it so that you, in your brain, you're like, I know this story because I've seen it before, but I've only seen it from the Autobots side of it, right? Yeah. Here it is from the Decepticon side of it. And I get what they're trying to do here, right? Why are the Autobots being such dicks, right?
Weirdly enough, it turns it into a Gundam story.
Oh, yeah? Oh, okay.
Yeah, because Gundam, structurally anyway, it doesn't always play this way out. Sometimes it is the most black and white stuff. But it is played out about the idea that there is no good and evil. It is a war. And good people exist on both sides, and bad people exist on both sides. And ultimately, most sides of a war have a demand that, on some level, you can understand. You may think it's an awful thing they're doing, but you can understand. Like there's a flimsy justification for what you're doing. You shouldn't be doing it, blah blah blah. And like Gundam really plays on that as its strength. Like that's one of the most popular characters in the original Gundam is Char Aznable. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. He was theoretically the main villain of the first series, but he was generally seen as a very sympathetic, interesting character who many people who watch the first series prefer him as a protagonist, just like he's then the straight hero Amuro Ray. So I think if you did a Transformer story with that structure, it could be really interesting. Like, okay, this is not about good versus evil. This is about two sides in a civilization who came to conflict and how it plays out. Some people in both sides are going to do good. Some people are going to do bad. I think if, again, kind of continuing that Gundam war, like if you made it like escalation, like make a story about what are these two sides doing to escalate the war. And like in that way you could maybe do it like if you don't want to bring in like big purple griffins or weird super weapons or anything like that, you do they're creating stronger and stronger Transformers.
Yeah.
Like, and that way you say like, Decepticons bring in triple changers, Autobots bring in Dinobots, Decepticons bring in six shot, Autobots bring in combiners, the Decepticons make Tripticon, Autobots make Fort Max. And then you build it up like that, and just like there's this escalations going on, except it's with living people. And like there's something to do with that kind of story. But I would
That's
definitely
cool.
like. I think
I like that.
I think if Shattered Glass had gone in that direction from the start, it would have been a lot better. Because all it was, what if Optimus Prime was mean?
Well, that's the biggest problem I had with it is there's really no difference in the storytelling. The story is the same story. You've just switched the teams around, right? And I'm like, okay, well, I really like I don't get the real difference here. You know, the teams change sides, and you're telling the same story now, right? So you know, I get Shattered Glass for what it is, but it doesn't impress me, right?
Yeah,
I'm not wooed by it.
It's something I liked about the comic, the new the IDW comic, because they actually did try and add in a bit of that, like because Megatron, unlike the original one, in the original he's like a young, youthful, I'm a heroic clerk. Here he's Megatron, fighting for things Megatron would fight for, but with a lot more moral standing, basically. Whereas Optimus is doing what Optimus would have done, but with a lot less moral standing, and it still spins off into the extreme good evil thing, but it at least has that basically a bit of intelligence behind it. And I'm not actively trying to knock the people who created Shattered Glass, even though it's not that hard. But there was more thought given to it, which I liked. And to be fair, I didn't like Shattered Glass until I watched the Gridman anime, and it broke my brain to the point where I have a collection of like Shattered Glass Optimus Primes now, one of which is a Gridman character who does not. If I showed you the character, they would not automatically make you think Optimus Prime. In fact, hang on, she's on the desk here. So you got this one, yeah.
Yep.
You've got this was I can never figure out if this is official or third party because it's really vague, but it's a little model kit.
Okay.
It is awful build. This was an awful build. And this one, which is the character I'm talking about, and they fall over. This is Shattered Glass Optimus Prime.
I see. Okay.
So, I put him back on the thing. For anyone who doesn't know what I just did, because I'm assuming there's also a visual joke in an audio medium, I have held up a couple of classic figures, but I held up the Nendroid of Akane Shingo from the original series of Gridman. And the original series of Gridman is based on sort of you've heard of Ultraman?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's basically an Ultraman show. It was in the 90s. And the idea was you went onto the internet and big fight. Fighting big weird monsters, which are guys in big suits. The Gridman anime is a play on that, made in 2018 by a studio called Studio Trigger. Studio Trigger is rife with Transformers fans, which is kind of unusual at that age because Transformers isn't as all ages as it is here in Japan. It's much more marketed at a younger audience. So you're only now moving into the generation where people in their 20s and 30s are coming out as Transformers fans, like Hayato Sakamoto and stuff like that.
Sure.
So everyone, basically, I once saw a picture of one of the animators' offices, and I think he was like the director, and like it's terrifying because basically, imagine your room. Imagine a cubicle, an office cubicle. You know the type of thing. You've got a computer in front of you and 4 walls.
Yep.
Except every single space is jam-packed with Transformers to the point where they look like the shelves are about to come down on his head. And this is his office space. This is where he's paid to be every day. And so it turned out a lot of them were fans, at least, of the aesthetics of Shattered Glass. So when they were designing all the characters for this show, for Gridman, every human character is a reference to a Transformer, usually Shattered Glass, or to a GoBot. Every single one. Down to their clothes, color designs, everything else. Like, I'm going to hold her up again. So, Akane, see the way the headphones are shaped?
Yep.
That's Optimus's antenna.
Yeah.
She's got the glasses, and you can't see it on my camera, but one of these glasses is cracked.
Oh,
like Shattered
the windshields. Yeah.
Like, even the color layout and the clothes and everything else is the same. She's got a backpack that says "Till all are dead." The main character, he's designed after Marvel Cliffjumper, because Marvel Cliffjumper in the classic body was the protagonist of the first Shattered Glass thing. The next guy is Shattered Glass Wheeljack. The Autobot Decepticon one from Armada. Yes. The female lead is Shattered Glass Megatron, and it goes on like that. One of the side characters is a Cycle.
Oh,
whose name is like it. Her name is like Saikuru Tonka, or something like that. So like a phonetic pronunciation of Cycle and Tonka. And my favorite thing is there is a boy band made up of different generations of Jetfire. It's just like, what the hell? I got obsessed with this in 2018. Like, there are somewhere on TFW, there was a post of me taking character designs and going like, oh my god, yeah. So now I have this, and now I have a complete Shattered Glass Optimus collection. And I probably should try and pick up the Shattered Glass Megatron at some point, which also means I need to buy the Nendroid of that character. And
is that the there's that new one that's the the anime girl one with the Megatron cannon over her shoulder? Is that what you're wrestling?
No, so it's no, because this one is just kind of like
looks
Japanese
gorgeous.
person. That looks in the Baishoujo series.
Yes.
Never. I love the aesthetics for that because they're not hypersexualized, which of course Japanese media kind of a thing. But there's
cool. Quite a stir over here.
Wait a bit. I've been in this for a very long time, so it doesn't really stir me on any real level. But phrasing. But I thought the designs for the Optimus Megatron of that were great. I like really, really good.
Yeah.
I mean, I loved reading. I saw the prototype during the week. We didn't talk about it on the show, but they were doing an interview with one of the designers. Said like what we really wanted was to Megatron look like she was looking down on you from on high. So we had to really get the tilt of the head right. Like I found that like I wouldn't think of that. I just think it's a cool person with a cannon on her shoulder. So
it looks awesome.
I wish that was an action figure because it would be cheaper, or a model kit because it would be cheaper still.
Yeah, it's not something that fits in with my personal collection here. I don't have any of that stuff, but it looks really nice. Yeah, that's very cool. Well, we're closing in on an hour, and I probably should only keep you to an hour, and have no idea what the format of this new show is going to be. But I think an hour is pretty good. What you talked about it a little earlier, but what you got coming up over there, Mike?
Oh God, for Moonbase, we're still plodding on with our shows. We're going to have our IDW thing coming up. We do our Patreon show, which is us kind of talking about anything we want. And I'm not last time it was me talking about Jurassic World, and we've done like my favorite one we've done is like. We've done both the worst episodes of every season of DS9 and the best episodes of every season of DS9. So I got to do the best ones, so I was fine. And Andy had to do the worst ones, which was funny. With Jason Kirk, who late of Radio Free Cybertron. So we're going to be playing it by ear by that. But if you want to keep track of us, we got our Twitter, Moonbase2 Twitter, and if you want to send us an email, if you listen to this and you want to get involved in the IDW thing, send me a tweet or send me an email on moonbase2@gmail.com. Like, I'm looking for people who are interested. All I require is that you're able to hold a conversation.
Okay.
Yeah, apart from that, we're just plowing ahead.
Right on. And anything that you're doing over there in the paleo world?
Got a few papers coming up. I'm more assisting at the moment than leading, but I'm really enjoying it. I would definitely tell people, if they're interested in paleo, check out Prehistoric Planet, that new series. It's the only I have checked now. It is probably the literal only reason to have Apple Plus, because oh my god, there's nothing on there. Like, I got the free trial at the start of the week, and I will be getting rid of it at the end of the week because there's nothing there. Nothing. Anything on there you can get easier somewhere else. Like, it's not just that. Like, I found 10 shows in the drama section. I was just scrolling.
I'm trying to think of stuff that I've watched that comes on Apple Plus. Morning Show was a good show. There's 2 seasons of that. Shoot, what else do I watch on that's from Apple Plus?
Yeah.
There's a couple.
I'm not sure a couple will be enough to convince me to pay the money.
It's not. It's not. So I sail the high seas to find my shows from Apple Plus. so it's definitely not. The streaming landscape that's happening right now.
I can do without
really
it.
requires you to figure out which ones you want to support. The other ones
I wish
you have
Netflix wasn't failing, because it was just a nice, simple, everything's in one place. I think everyone has a streaming model is going to collapse. Basically, what I think is going to happen is that the model is going to collapse, and then Disney's going to buy them all up, and it's all going to come under Disney Plus.
Yeah. Or you're going to be able to buy one streaming package and they'll all be in it, and then it'll be ad supported, and
it'll be like cable or satellite or whatever.
We'll have cable back.
Yeah.
So
somehow we've come back in time.
Yeah. Oh well. But anyway, Mike, it's been fantastic chatting with you here.
Enjoyed it.
And enjoy the new Jurassic World movie when
I hope it doesn't suck.
Hey, it's bringing the worlds together.
Yeah, but
right?
I Fallen Kingdom is a movie that shouldn't have been made. I like Jurassic World. Fallen Kingdom was directed by the wrong man, because he didn't care, and all you have to do is look at an interview and see he really didn't. It was a job, and like, he was really good at horror shots and not much else. Because there's a scene where a dinosaur sticks its head in lava and then goes like, oh no, and then keeps on trying to murder people. And I'm just like, might have reacted a bit stronger to having its head in lava. But he's out now, and people are going to say, well, Trevor wrote that movie as well. But like, we all know there's a big difference between when someone's directing a movie and what goes in, and when someone's writing a movie and what's going in. But he's directing and writing this one like he was with Jurassic World. He's bringing a lot of legacy characters, lots of new dinosaurs. And I happen to know the scientific consultant for this one quite well. So I know a lot about the design process, and like a lot of attempts to try and move it to being a bit more scientifically accurate while still feeling very Jurassic Parky. So that's why you got like a lot more feathers in this one. And like, they've changed the orientation of all the wrists to the right one. So T-Rex doesn't do this anymore, it does this. Okay. Which doesn't make any sense to anyone listening to this, because they can't see what I'm doing. But
they face in clap instead of down.
Basically, T-Rex can now clap. So, and they've got really cool dinosaur. One of my favorites is in there, and like basically claws the size of your upper body. So I am looking forward to that. So hopefully it's good. It could suck real hard, but I hope it's good.
Well, it's something, and the same way Jurassic Park did it in the mid-90s, this one will do it again with all the young kids.
Yep.
It always brings attention to dinosaurs, and kids' imaginations will spark up again, and you'll get more kids interested in dinosaurs, which is never a bad thing, regardless of how it happens. So, so we'll let that happen, and just enjoy the ride, like we always like to have happen. So
definitely.
Anyway, Mike, it's been a pleasure, and We'll talk to you soon.
It's been real fun.
All right, later.
Later.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Transmissions. If you'd like to join the conversation, travel to our Discord channel at transmissionspodcast.com/Discord. Want some cool transmission swag? Feast your eyes on our transmissions gear at transmissionspodcast.com/shop. If you'd like to support our podcast, go to transmissionspodcast.com/support or tell your friends about our show. We'll see you next time.